Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we are talking about 7 ways to reduce food sensitivities. Food sensitivities are at an all-time high in our society today. There's more people suffering with this than really ever before, and I think all of us that are listening, we've probably had this happen to us where we ate something and it seemed to be like a delayed response, but we just lost our energy. I know for me, I get very low on energy when I have a food reaction, or sometimes I've got to clear my throat a lot. And we're going to talk about all the major symptoms that are associated with food sensitivities. I'm also going to go through exactly what I do with patients in order to help reduce these food sensitivities so you can open up your diet and really eat more of the foods that you enjoy without having the inflammatory response. So as we jump into this, if you don't know me, my name's Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine, and I specialize in really helping people heal their gut, improve their energy levels, their brain function. And, this is my wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua, and we live just outside of Atlanta in a town called Ackworth, Kennesaw area, Cobb County, Georgia, northwest part of Atlanta. And so as we jump into this topic, what is the difference between a food sensitivity versus a food allergy? Because this is often, a lot of people confuse these things. Basically, food allergies, they develop from infancy, okay? And you notice a reaction immediately. So if somebody has a peanut allergy and they consume a peanut, their lip may swell up, right? They may start choking because they've got swelling going on in their airway, right? So these are kind of reactions that happen. Sometimes they get significant rashes and hives when they consume something. So these would be allergies, and they are characterized by a certain type of antibody that the body produces, a certain type of immunoglobulin called IgE. This is an IgE reaction. And I always say IgE as in IG emergency, right? So these can be life-threatening reactions that take place. And the most common types of allergies are peanuts. And that's why food manufacturers will label things and they'll say, this product was produced in a facility that also uses peanuts or tree nuts, or eggs. Eggs are another common one. Milk, dairy products, fish, and shellfish. So these are the most common allergies that people have. Now, sensitivities are different, and you can see the statistics here. 45% of the population suffer from a food sensitivity, and I would actually say it's much higher. So for me, clinically, my hypothesis would be that's more like 90% of the population that's going to suffer from some sort of a food sensitivity. But, what's in the literature right now is that 45%. So that's still a huge number. And this is a delayed reaction, and it's characterized by a different type of immune component called IgG. So IgE is the food allergy emergency, right? IgG is going to be a delayed reaction. So you consume something, you don't necessarily, you don't have a life-threatening reaction that takes place, but over the next few days, you start to notice that you're bloated, that you've got increase in joint pain. You may have bowel inconsistency like constipation, diarrhea, fatigue. You may notice issues with your skin like eczema. It may affect your brain and your mood. You may have headaches, right? These are all things that can be associated with food sensitivities. Lots of info in there, info in the research about food sensitivities causing a lot of these types of reactions, and how a food elimination diet, which I'm going to go through, it really can help alleviate these kinds of symptoms. And so most common sensitivities, you can see there, sugar, eggs, again, another common one, corn, dairy products, wheat, and gluten. And so can you self-assess for this? It's different than obviously, food allergy. Food allergy, you know it because of, the anaphylactic type of response that your body goes through. Whereas with food sensitivities, one great test is pulse testing. So if you were to take your pulse before you consumed a food, then you went ahead, let's say, you consumed dairy, right? or you just put it on your tongue and you had a sensitivity to it, it's going to cause issues with your pulse. So your pulse typically will jump up several beats, 3 to 4 plus beats. I've had people where, they put it on their tongue and they put whatever the food reactant is, and their heart jumped up 10 to 15 beats. So that's a sign that there's a stress response going on. And there are apps that kind of track your pulse, right? That you can just easily get. They'll track your pulse, and you can do this, through your phone app if you don't feel confident in just testing your own pulse. So definitely something to check out. And so what are kinds of food intolerance / food sensitivity type reactions? Well, pain can definitely be one. Congestion, if you feel like you're always congested, it's typically related to a food sensitivity. You weren't supposed to always be congested. I see a lot of kids and adults with gluten and dairy sensitivities, and they're eating this all the time, right? And they're always congested, and they just think, I'm always going to be congested. They have allergies, different issues like that. Doesn't have to be that way. So digestive issues is another common one. Swelling or water retention is very common. Chronic candida that you just can't kick, very much related to food sensitivities because it weakens your overall immune system. Every time you eat something that's poisonous to your body, right, in a sense, even though it's not life-threatening poison, it's still weakening your system. That's going to reduce your immunity. And what happens when we reduce your immunity? That's going to allow for pathogenic microbes to elevate, right, to grow and ferment, and that's going to cause more inflammation, more problems. So you can see skin issues, autoimmune disease, headaches, migraines, trouble sleeping at night, fatigue and cravings. You see big dark circles or bags under your eyes, oftentimes related to food sensitivities as well. So 7 ways to reduce food sensitivities. Number 1, you got to get rid of inflammatory foods. Not just foods that you have a sensitivity to, but you also need to get rid of foods that we just know through the research are inflammatory on your body. Okay, so you got to get rid of these things. That's going to be things like corn. It's going to be things like soy, like gluten, and really almost, most grains in general are not going to be really good for you. So I recommend going grain-free, getting rid of pasteurized dairy protein would be good. So I'm okay with grass-fed butter. I think that's an awesome food. But getting rid of the casein, whey, and lactose would be a really good idea. So butter or ghee, grass-fed, of course, would be great. But get rid of the cheese and things like that, because a lot of people have sensitivities to those, to dairy protein. It's a very common one. Eggs, right? A lot of times people have issues with eggs. So if you're noticing a lot of food sensitivities, obviously try to be observant as to which foods are causing the problems. And I would say the first few to get rid of would be peanuts, dairy protein, gluten, and particularly gluten. But, if you can go grain-free, I think you'll see faster changes. Corn and soy. So those would be great ones to get rid of right from the start. And of course, any sort of processed sugar as well. So you follow that sort of an elimination diet. You also, we need to work on strengthening your stomach acid. I'm going to talk more about that as we go on. Digestive enzymes can also be very helpful because sometimes our body's so worn down that we're not able to produce enough stomach acid, bile, and pancreatic enzymes in order to really metabolize food and digest it effectively. We also want to improve your immune tolerance. So we're going to talk about some different things that will help with basically balancing out your immune system. We want to take gentle antimicrobials. Sometimes, especially if we've had food sensitivities for a while, we're going to have microbial overgrowth, whether it's yeast, bacteria, parasites, and that's going to further drain our immune system and cause more inflammatory type reactions. So in the beginning, I say take gentle antimicrobials because you don't want things that are going to cause a lot of disruption in your gut, but things that will start to, start to reduce the overall microbial load on your system. And that's going to help reduce inflammation. And so we want to do that kind of gradually. And then we want to take specific types of probiotics that research has shown are really effective at helping to reduce bacterial overgrowth and food sensitivities in general. So as we dive into this, we know that when there's chronic gut inflammation, it's going to lead to this gut dysbiosis. Right? We're eating food, we're not digesting them well. It's going to cause an abnormal amount of bad microbes in the gut. It's called gut dysbiosis, which is going to cause leaky gut because there's going to be inflammation damaging the gut lining, And now food particles are going to flow into the bloodstream, and we're going to have immune sensitivity. So this is a picture of the intestinal lining, and you can see in here, right in the center, this is what happens when the intestinal cells, because they're only one cell wall thick, and they're held together by these tight junctions. What happens when a tight junction breaks? It opens up this gap. And now food particles or bacteria or yeast can actually go through the gut and into the bloodstream. And the body says, wow, this is, body sends out an alarm reaction because it's like, this is life-threatening. There are large proteins in my bloodstream. And the body gets concerned because when it's adapted to know that when there are large proteins in the bloodstream, that is a risk for a systemic bacterial infection that could kill us, right? So it's saying, wow, this is life-threatening. I've got to create an immune reaction to break down these proteins. And oftentimes it will create more inflammation, or it can create autoimmune type reactions where we produce antibodies. And those antibodies will be produced to particular tissues. However, oftentimes there's cross reactants, and different tissues of our body have similar proteins as proteins in food. For example, the thyroid tissue is a similar protein structure as the protein found in wheat or gluten. Okay, so when we have autoimmunity or we have food sensitivities to something like gluten, oftentimes our body can confuse the thyroid and actually create antibodies to the thyroid as well, and cause things like Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. So what kinds of things trigger leaky gut? Well, undigested proteins. So if we're just eating really, really fast, we're not going to be able to digest our proteins well, okay? Or if we're just eating foods that compromise our digestive system, like many of the foods we talked about, these sorts of food sensitivities, that's going to cause basically undigested large proteins to get into the intestines, and it's going to cause fermentation, where the bacteria and microbes are going to ferment it, cause more inflammation, and damage the gut lining. Also, low stomach acid and enzymes. So if we have low stomach acid, and there's a number of reasons why, but in general, stress is the antagonist to healthy digestive juice production. So the more stress we have, the lower amount of stomach acid and enzymes we're going to be able to produce, the less efficient we're going to be at metabolizing our food. So stress depletes stomach acid and enzymes, and also nutrient imbalances can. So if we have deficiencies in things like zinc, that can cause issues. B12 cause issues with stomach acid. If we have poor thyroid function, it can cause issues with low stomach acid. So there's a number of reasons. Antibiotics, right? So if we're taking prescription antibiotics, going to wipe out our gut microflora, going to cause an overgrowth of types of species that can survive through antibiotics, like yeast, for example. If we have chronic gut infections, whether it's parasites or other gut bacteria that shouldn't be in our gut, it's going to cause more inflammation and damage the gut lining. Blood sugar issues are going to open up these tight junctions. If we're consuming antibiotics in our diet, right? So not taking the prescription, but consuming them in our diet through grain-fed, commercial-raised animal products, we're going to cause more inflammation in our gut and cause these types of issues. Even pregnancy. I know my wife has a lot of issues with her gut after, the pregnancy process, having our twins. And so pregnancy is going to cause an overall laxity and open up these junctions. So same thing with menopause. As women are going through menopause, their estrogen progesterone levels drop, and the integrity of these tight junctions can reduce significantly, leading to leaky gut. Environmental toxins, pesticides, herbicides can cause more problems and cause dysbiosis, where there's a overgrowth of microbes that shouldn't be in our gut or shouldn't be overgrown in our gut. Pesticides and herbicides can really contribute to that. Food allergies in general, and stress, like we were talking about before, because it depletes or wipes out our ability to produce digestive juices. So number of reasons why we can develop leaky gut. And in general, the better that we digest our food, the better we're going to absorb nutrients, the better energy, and the better detoxification we're going to have, better skin health, better brain health. Overall, our body is going to thrive when we're able to really digest our food effectively, break it down into the key micronutrients that we need, absorb those, and utilize those in the cell. So one big factor with that is our intestinal flora. And so we know that the makeup of our gut microbiome really plays a key role with the immune system, really balancing out the two arms of our immune system, Th1 and Th2 immune system. The intestinal flora plays a key role with that, with absorbing B vitamins, with metabolism. There's a lot of research out about people who are overweight or obese or have weight loss resistance. They have an overgrowth of a particular type of species of bacteria compared to people who are thinner. So lots of research on this kind of stuff, and lots of research on how the gut bacteria play a role in brain health as well as skin health too. People don't realize that, but play a huge role with the kind of microbes we have in our gut. It's going to play a big role with the integrity and the health of your skin. So the healthier your gut, the healthier your skin is going to be. And so we know that when we have an overgrowth of bad microbes or microbes that shouldn't be overgrown in our system, like candida or parasites or different types of bacteria like Klebsiella or Citrobacter, we're going to have more inflammation in our gut. We're going to have poor quality of life. So where does this start when we're trying to correct these problems? Well, I always recommend the elimination diet, because remember, when we're eating foods that our body is sensitive to, it's going to block or blunt the release of digestive juices. That means lowered amount of stomach acid. That means reduced movement of food through your digestive system. So it's going to sit in your system longer, and it's going to be a ripe environment for microbes to overgrow and really to consume and feast on the food you ate, ferment it, create gas, which can cause a lot of different issues like acid reflux, for example. If the gas is kind of pushing the stomach and the stomach contents up, it can cause obviously gas, flatulence, bloating, inflammation, just pain in general. It will cause leaky gut. And so we've got to get on this sort of elimination diet. And there's a lot of research about elimination diets being able to help heal leaky gut syndrome, improve autoimmunity, reduce digestive symptoms. And I have a whole video where I go through the research on the benefits of a food elimination diet, but it can be profound for somebody's health. And so what are 5 key steps to following this? Well, number 1 is obviously you've got to say, hey, these are the foods that I'm avoiding. Like you see this picture of corn, and we talked about corn, soy. We talked about pasteurized dairy. We talked about gluten and really all grains. And we talked about sugar. So if you're going to do some grains, okay, the grains that would be better would be something like rice or quinoa or amaranth. However, I do see that sometimes people react to those as well. But definitely coming off gluten-containing grains would be huge, as well as the pasteurized dairy protein. Read labels. So definitely reading labels, making sure. I see a lot of times people will be on a gluten-free diet, but they don't realize that even sometimes it's their skincare products or makeup that actually has gluten in it. Or they'll be on a corn-free diet, but they're having in a supplement they're consuming, they've got some sort of a corn product, right? So, and they're reacting to it and they don't know it. Use a food journal. So you want to chart what you're consuming on a daily basis. You want to see how your body's reacting, okay, to things. You want to see how is your brain functioning on this sort of a diet. How is your bowel activity, right? And it can change and go up and down each day. So you want to kind of look for patterns, and that's going to really help you understand which foods you're reacting more to and which foods you're not, which foods seem to strengthen your body. So that's what you want to find out there is what foods weaken you, what foods strengthen you. When you begin adding foods back, because you do this elimination diet, I recommend a month. Doing it for 4 to 6 weeks or so would be great. Really give your system a chance to heal. And when you start adding the foods you've eliminated back, right, particularly the healthy foods, okay, so I don't really believe anybody needs to be on gluten. But if you took out eggs, for example, eggs are a super nutrient-dense food, so you may want to add those back. You want to do it one at a time, right? So you want to do just eggs. You don't want to try to add back eggs and corn, for example. That you wouldn't want to do that. So you want to do one at a time. And what you would do is do it in a slow, isolated, and intentional manner where you're doing one, okay, and you're kind of giving yourself 3 days to see how your body reacts and responds to that, to the egg, right? And so you're observing for changes in symptoms. If you felt good when you added the egg back, that's excellent. If you felt like your symptoms were coming back, even if it was like 48 hours after, that's a sign that you may be, still creating inflammation when you consume that. You may still be sensitive. So you'll want to take it out for at least another month before you try it back in. And doing it month by month is a really great idea because that's kind of enough time for your body to get a healing process going. So taking the food out for a month, trying to add it back in, observing for symptoms. If you notice the symptoms, take it out again. If you don't, add it back in, but don't do it carelessly. Continue to observe when you're consuming that food and see how you respond. If it's a food you know that you weren't reacting well to, it'd be a really good idea to consume it, definitely no more than twice a week. Consume it one day, give yourself 3 or 4 days, then consume it another day, and kind of see how your body responds. So doing it once a week or twice a week to see how your body responds to it. So I see a lot of people, they follow the elimination diet, they're getting results, they add foods back in, but they don't do it in a slow, isolated, intentional manner. And so what happens is they've added these foods back in, and then 3 months later, they've got a lot of symptoms and they don't know what's the culprit. They kind of feel like giving up just because they felt like they already did the elimination diet. But the problem was that they didn't reintroduce the foods back properly. So be sure to do that. 10 ways to improve your stomach acid. This is going to help you get rid of these types of food sensitivities. One is using liquid nutrition throughout the day. We know stress is the antagonist to good digestion and digestive juice production. So really drinking a lot of nutrients, smoothies and green drinks, things like that can be helpful. Using ginger, so whether it's ginger tea or ginger roots, ginger spice, ginger is so good for helping stimulate stomach acid production. Drinking a lot of water between meals, not with the meal because that will dilute your stomach acid, but a lot outside of meals. So when your body feels like it's getting enough water and enough electrolytes, putting a little salts in, it's going to dampen down the stress response. When we're dehydrated, we're going to have a higher stress response. So drink a lot between meals, but don't drink a lot with meals because, again, we don't want to dilute that stomach acid. So drink just enough to consume any supplements you may need. And then make sure in your meal that you've got things like vegetables, for example, which are going to provide natural electrolytes and hydration. And you'll notice that you're not as thirsty when you do that. And you won't be as thirsty after the meal. And so brings us to number 5 is hold off on water after a meal. We don't want to drink water right away after a meal. If it's a solid food meal with meat, I'm saying, hey, let's wait an hour, right? At least an hour, maybe an hour and a half before we consume food to make sure that that stomach acid is able to really, really concentrate and break down that food. Using lemon and apple cider vinegar can be really helpful. Putting it on salads, putting it on meat. The lemon, the apple cider vinegar provide enzymes. They provide acids, citric acid in the lemon or lime, the acetic acid that's in the apple cider vinegar that help pre-metabolize the meat and the vegetables before it even gets into your body, right? Plus, you can drink it in water, and it's really, really good for helping create a healthy microbiome. You have a lot of vitamin C and potassium in the lemon and the lime, so it's great to be putting those in. And so I drink lemon water or lime water or apple cider vinegar water every single morning. Great way to kind of get your body to help improve your energy levels, to help regulate your gut microbiome. Great thing to do. And then also using these with your meat and your vegetables, putting apple cider vinegar or lemon or lime on them, again, starts the digestion process before it even gets into your body. Eat protein foods at the beginning of the meal. This is counterintuitive, but you think about it, we want to get the meat in at the bottom part of the stomach. So when the stomach acid comes out and it's metabolizing, right? The stomach acid comes out, we want that stomach acid to be focused on meat because that's really what we need stomach acid for, is the meat, to sterilize it, to break down the protein so we can digest it effectively, to help activate intrinsic factor, to pull the B12 out, pull the iron out, the zinc out of that. We really don't need stomach acid to be able to metabolize vegetables well. It definitely helps, but at the same time, it's not as absolutely necessary as it is with meat. So consume your meat first, then your salad second, actually, or later in the meal. That's going to be the most effective way to to improve your digestion here. And the better that we digest our food, the less stress we're going to have on our body. Therefore, the better we're going to produce stomach acid. So, just it's a positive cycle there when that happens. That's what we want. Fermented vegetables. So you can do things like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, stuff like that. I consume these kinds of foods every day. Very, very good for helping stimulate stomach acid production. They also have enzymes and organic acids and good bacteria. They're going to help metabolize the food. So especially with your meat-containing meal, doing something like sauerkraut or kimchi or pickles with that will help the digestion process. Also fermented drinks. So doing something like apple cider vinegar, for example, is a fermented drink. You can also do things like Kavita, which is coconut water kefir. So fermented coconut water. I'm a big fan of that. I found that kombucha has a lot of wild yeast strains. So there's a lot of people that don't do great with doing a lot of kombucha. I'm not a huge fan of that one. I'm definitely a bigger fan of the coconut water kefir. However, doing kombucha in small quantities can be very helpful for many people. And then finally, eat your largest meal when you're most relaxed. So if we're running around doing errands, we got a lot going on, that's more of a time for a smoothie, because a smoothie, the blender's already done the work, right? It's already pre-digested. So it doesn't take as much work for your digestive system. Whereas when you're sitting down, you're eating meat, vegetables, or even a starch like a sweet potato, you're going to need a lot of digestive juices, a lot of stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile to break that down effectively, or else it will cause more inflammation. So when you do consume that sort of a meal, make sure you're relaxed. In my household, we pray before we eat. And you think about that idea of praying, that's going to stimulate a part of our nervous system called our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to stimulate the production of digestive juices, bile, pancreatic enzymes, stomach acid. That's really what we want. So taking the time, being relaxed before we consume that large meal, so important for healthy digestion. Okay, let's talk really quick about some supplements. I talked about digestive enzymes. This is a great support to your overall digestion. They're very inexpensive. They can be really powerful, really, really helpful for reducing food reactions. I use one called Super D-zyme that I take pretty much with every meal. I'll take one with a smoothie at times, although you don't typically need it with a smoothie. And typically I'll take two with my solid food meals to really make sure that I'm digesting them well. That means the meat and the vegetables, right? So the vegetables sometimes can be tough on the digestive system, like broccoli, even if it's steamed, can sometimes be tough. So enzymes can really help with breaking down that hard outer cellulose that's so important. And then GI regulator, this is a very gentle antimicrobial, has berberine compounds, grapefruit seed extract. These sorts of compounds help to stabilize your blood sugar. They help to reduce the overgrowth of bad bacteria and yeast in your system. And this one also has some zinc in it, which is really good for immune function and hormones, right? So zinc is very key for taming the immune system. It's an immune modulator, right? So it helps to modulate the immune system so we don't overinflame. And so I have that right built into that GI regulator. It can be really helpful. Now, the type of probiotic for people that have a lot of food sensitivities, oftentimes I'll use this SBO probiotic. Really, really good. A lot of good stuff in there. Saccharomyces boulardii and a lot of different soil-based probiotics that are in there that are super good for the body, like Bacillus coagulans and Bacillus casei, right? Those are really, really good, well-researched to help reduce food sensitivities. We also have other probiotics as well. We have one that's only soil-based, which is called Prescript Assist. That works really good, especially for people that have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's usually what I'll use is the Prescript Assist. And then people that have Candida, I like to use this SBO probiotic. Works really, really good. And you can find that on our store, drjockers.com store. Also, we have the gut healing protein, which has things like zinc, quercetin, MSM, curcumin, ginger, watercress, all different types of anti-inflammatory compounds that help downregulate gut-based inflammation. So if we go back up to that top slide, we saw that gut inflammation. Inflammation in our digestive system is kind of where it all starts when it comes to creating food sensitivities. So the gut healing protein helps downregulate that gut inflammation, helps support the development of really good bacteria that are going to keep inflammatory levels low in your body and it helps you to heal your leaky your gut. And so just so critical. And so it's a supplement I use with all of my autoimmune clients. I'll use this gut healing protein. And so with that being said, I actually have a program, a digital program where I go through really how to overcome food sensitivities in a lot more detail, how to improve your stomach acid levels, how to test how to do pulse testing, and so much more. It's called our Autoimmune Elimination Program. So if you haven't been able to check that out yet, go to drjockers.com, check the programs header, and you'll be able to check out that program. And last but not least, definitely stay plugged in, whether it's subscribing to our YouTube channel here or go to drjockers.com, and I have a free gift. It is our Digestion and Energy Quick Start Guide, where I go through a lot of the strategies I talked about in today's presentation, as well as my 10 favorite fat-burning dessert recipes, things I make all the time to help my body, help support ketosis, help support fat burning, and keep me really energized and on fire all day long. So guys, it's been a great training. Hope you guys got a lot out of that, and we'll see you on a future training.